Hello, everybody. These some new names. Thank y'all so much for coming. Figured I'd do a little bit earlier since I'm off this summer. And it's all ready anyways. Yes, I'm gonna have it recorded. If you don't want your face or likeness or name or anything, feel free to change or keep your video off. I'm gonna try to post it to the YouTube channel. I'm not gonna share the PowerPoint though, because a lot of the information came from the BAS supervisor guide, and out of respect to them, I just don't want to give all their stuff away. No problem. Yeah, if you gotta go, you gotta go. It's completely understandable. Like I said, it's being recorded as of right now, so I don't forget. And I'll have it posted to the YouTube channel so you can watch it later. And then tomorrow night, we're gonna go ahead and just knock out K. Just really appreciate y'all coming.
So that's it. Thank goodness.
Okay. We'll wait a few more minutes and grab a few more people, and then we'll get going. I know it's a different time than I usually go, so I don't know how many people I'm going to catch. But while we're waiting, once again, thank y'all for coming. I really do appreciate y'all taking the time out to hang out with me. I'm not an expert by any means, just a guy studying and looking for people that want to hang out and study with me. If there's a topic you want to go further on tonight or explain it better that I don't know much, that maybe someone in the room knows more, feel free to share your knowledge. Like I said earlier, the PowerPoint will not be posted just because of all the information. A lot of it came from VAS Supervisor Guide, but the recording will be posted. So that's going to be there. Part D is already posted, all 3 sections. Tonight we're going to do J, tomorrow we're going to do K, and then next week it looks like we're going to do F. kind of went for the areas I was wanting to get more comfortable in. That's why I bounced around a little bit. In case you're looking for a method to the madness and why I kind of jumped around a little bit. I took Bill's mock, and where I scored the lowest in the 70s was F, J, K, and I want to say there was one more, can't remember off the top of my head. Feel free to take pictures, screenshots, or whatever you need to do for any of the information tonight. That does not bother me at all. All right, let's go ahead and get rolling. If you have a question, feel free to unmute your microphone and get in there. If you need to, chat box is okay too. All right, here we go. Tasklist J Interventions. Okay. I want to see everybody, but I always get the block thing on. Okay, we'll just do this. Got some more people kind of coming in here a little bit. What an effective intervention looks like. According to the VAS Supervisor Guide, we select interventions based on social validity, environmental constraints, supporting environments, current repertoires, and client preferences, task analysis, and the best scientific evidence. What does all of that mean? Well, we base our interventions on social validity. If we compared that goal, that intervention to the age typical peers, classmate, his or her classmates, his or her learners at their age, does that goal intervention make sense with their peers? Do we have any environmental constraints? Do we need to look at those things? Obviously, we need some support from our environment. We need buy-in. We also need to look at the client's current repertoire. What are they capable of doing? I know I use it a lot and say it a lot, but the break card. Does the client understand what the break card is? Well, if they don't, then we need to teach it. We need to, show them what that means. We need to work on what they can do. And of course, the preferences of the client. And then task analysis breaks down the what we're looking at in those individual steps, those simple steps. And of course, the best scientific evidence. We're not looking for fads and trends. We're looking for research-based interventions. Behavior analysts should also plan for generalization and maintenance. Remember, one of our dimensions is generality. So we need to plan for generalization, not just say generalize, but plan for it. What is that going to look like when we're done with the intervention and we're planning for maintenance down the road? We also need to plan throughout the intervention and prepare for the client to make derived relations. I'm really having my light bulb moment with derived relations, because that's when the learner kind of has their own light bulb moment and goes, oh, so if the picture of the car is the word car, this must be the same as the word car, the actual object. That's our goal for the client, to make those derived relations, to make some relations on their own. The planning for generalization and maintenance throughout is huge. What does it look like when we fade ourselves out, when they start mastering goals? What does it look like when we're not in the picture and down the road? Those are things we need to be thinking about all the time. This is really important. Define the behavior in observable and measurable terms. There's a lot of mock questions out there looking for the most observable and measurable terms. Be careful on some of your choices that they use some ambiguous language. He's depressed, or he's unhappy. Look for very specific, observable behavioral terms. We want to look for behavioral cusps for goals. We want to have those behaviors that lead to other behaviors. Crawling leads to walking, and walking leads to running, and running leads to so forth. When we look at behavior cusps, we also want to look at generative learning, which includes pivotal behaviors and behavioral cusps. We want to find those behaviors that have those two things matched up a little bit together. Not only do they lead to other behaviors, but they also increase on those behaviors. Facebook may open a lot of doors, may help with social cues here through the internet, but also leads to learning how to use Snapchat and Instagram and other platforms like that. And we also want to select alternative behaviors that we want to increase. We're always looking for that replacement behavior, the alternative behavior, because remember, desired and undesired, those are opinions. Good and bad, those are opinions. So we're trying to find an alternative behavior that serves the same function as that target behavior, and we want that behavior to increase. I took this from one of the slides I used for work. When it comes to measurable and observable behavior, we want a clear, concise, and objective definition. What does it look like? It's kind of like in the substitute teacher is coming in for tomorrow to watch your class. And you want that teacher to know about a particular student and a particular behavior. You need to paint a picture. If a teacher tells you about a particular student and there's a behavior exhibiting that they want you to decrease or increase, you're going to need them to paint you a picture. And that includes, what does it look like? What exactly is a student doing? I had this discussion a little bit today about tantruming and hitting. What does hitting look like? I have some kids do the helicopter hit. I have some kids that have intent to really want to hurt somebody, and some kids don't. What does hitting look like? So you need to be very descriptive. Is it a clenched fist? Is it an open hand? Is it within close proximity? Is it only teachers? Is it only peers? Paint me a picture. Would others understand what I'm talking about? Could they understand the behavior being described? What does it mean when the student is being good or bad? I want the student to work on this, or they need to be better at this, or they're happy, they're sad, they're depressed, they're upset. We need to describe what we see behavioral-wise. We don't want to get into all these, I don't want to say feelings, but good, bad, he's upset or unhappy. It doesn't tell a whole lot, and you don't want to imply anything. We want to just the facts. We want to use empiricism to make sure we're using the facts, what's going on. Which the last point here. Tell me about what is going on with the child or client. You hear a student is anxious. You need to know more clearly what behavior is exhibited. If instead the behavior is defined as slamming a fist, throwing a pencil, breaking a pencil into two pieces and yelling, "I hate math," or storming out of the room, these are more operational. They can be observed and having an effect on the environment. So once again, if I say he's being anxious, what does that mean? My dog's being anxious during the storms. Well, my dog doesn't like the storm, so let me be more clear. During storms, my dog paces around within, proximity of 6 feet away from me and lays down nearby because she hates how the thunder hits. Oh, I'm just trying to be more specific here. But when we say non-compliant or we say disrespectful, what are we looking at? We need to have a definition. So what does it look like? And make sure to describe the behavior topographically. These are the kind of questions that pop up on mocks that I've taken so far. They give you 4 examples of operational definition, and you got to find the best one. When I see anxious, or I see sad, or I see upset, or I see happy, I cross them out. I look for very clear cut and concise examples. All right, so right, those are definitely mentalistic explanations. Circular reasoning, you know, he has ADHD because he runs around. He runs around because he has ADHD. My explanation kind of has a circular deal going on. Very mentalistic. Good job. Very good. Very good. It really kind of struck core with me with the staff, with the teachers that I work with. You know, I got this child and this child and this child, and I understand where they're coming from. I understand the issues going on. But what you view and what I view are two different things. So we need that operational definition to get a handle on what is going on. All right, which of the following is the best written operational definition of a behavior? I tried my best here. All right, you can answer in the chat box. You can private me or you can go out in the open. Doesn't make a difference. Which one is the more operational definition? Got a lot of B's going on here. A lot of B's. And you guys are absolutely correct. The answer is B. This is kind of hard to find, to make it incorrect, to make it the off way. But Judy will reduce screaming. So I put in there defined as. What is screaming? It's straight out of a page, pretty much out of what my supervisor has really worked on with me. When we go to a team meeting and we decide to do an FBA or reduce or increase behavior, what is that specific operational definition? So we know right here what screaming is. It's uncomfortably loud verbalizations at a high pitch, accompanied by a wide open mouth. So we have a wide open mouth and loud verbalizations to a frequency of 0 per week for 2 consecutive weeks. Compared to the other one, she screams really loud. Bruce seems to scream really loud, bother everybody. Well, what does bother mean? Not really sure. We know, but we still need to paint what does bother mean and what does screaming look like. C, reduce screaming in teachers and staff for 2 consecutive weeks. I like the 2 consecutive weeks, but once again, what is screaming? D, Bruce will increase screaming, such as being about to be heard from 10 feet away until his peers become seriously annoyed. Starts off pretty good, and the ending, seriously annoyed. Can't really measure seriously annoyed. Maybe kind of in a way, but can't really measure that. All right, here we go. Got A, B, and C. Which one is the least written operational definition? Least written operational definition. Got some C's, got a B. The least written. Hit some B's. All right, let's look at our choices here. Let's look at our choices. Maybe I was trying too hard. Which one's the worst operational definition? Which one's the worst? Which one's not? Which one? In this case, we're going to find the one that's supposed to be operational, then the other one isn't. And the one that isn't is our answer. So let's look at here. Let's look at what we got. Okay. Judy will increase her use of alternative phrases such as, I am so mad right now, or I'm really disappointed, in conversational volume and tone when confronted with denial of access to reinforcers in 9 out of 10 opportunities for 2 consecutive weeks. So we want to increase. We've defined the alternative phrases. Conversational volume, I can see that. That can be kind of ambiguous a little bit there. We have denial of access. We have our trials, 9 of 10, and 2 consecutive weeks. That's pretty well written, except for maybe the conversational part, an operational definition. So let's see if the next one's it is worse. If it is worse, that would be our answer. Franklin will decrease his out-of-seat behavior, defined as leaving his area where his chair and desk are located throughout the day, while staying in his seat. I did a little typo here. While staying in his seat through at least 2 different subjects. I like how we're defined as out-of-seat behavior. Throughout the day gets really ambiguous. Which subjects? Is there certain academic work? Is there certain things he needs to get done? What is the, could we be more specific on throughout the school day? While staying in his seat during academic work for at least 2 different subjects. I think we're missing the how many opportunities. I think we're missing the how many consecutive weeks. So B would be probably not the best written one because it doesn't have a criterion at the end. B needs to have a better criterion. Yes, we have that behavior defined, but we don't really have a good criterion. We didn't know how many opportunities or how many weeks or how many periods. We need a better criterion. So B would probably be the least written, while A is very well written in comparison. That's a hard one to write, to be honest with you guys. I'm not going to lie. That's kind of hard. Using the same observable and measurable elements to define behavior, such as topography, what does that behavior look like? Duration, or another behavioral dimension, intensity, and possibly function. So when we are looking at elements to define topography, what does it look like? How long or how many times? Give me some kind of behavioral dimension. Is there an intensity? Is there a possible function that we have an idea? Why are they doing this? In goal setting, however, we are using these definitions to determine a reduction in behavior or an increase, which would be considered acceptable to the client. All right, let's get my little painting thing. I was so excited when I found that. Benefits of defining intervention goals operationally. Obviously, in our world, that's what we want. That's what we expect. We need that concise, clear, objective definition. But what does it mean to others? What's the benefit of it? Well, such definitions provide the opportunity to get all the information about the behavior's occurrence and non-occurrence, putting it all out there. When does it occur? When does it not occur? What does it exactly look like? They encompass all relevant forms of the response class. An example is teaching safety skills to cross the street, stopping at the stop sign, or edge of the road and waiting for traffic to stop prior to crossing the road. So if I want to teach a safety skill, or I want this child to increase the safety skill, I need to be specific. What safety skill am I targeting? What exactly do I want them to do? And what would be a good criterion at the end? For some of our IEP writers, 80% is not always the best way to go, because the percentage isn't really fair. Because a lot of our people that are putting that percentage in, they're not doing at least 30 different trials or 30 different occurrences to give us that true percentage. So trials per criterion, or other ways, or using other forms of data to really show a progression is probably a lot better than that percentage. I used to be a percentage fan. I'm starting to kind of see it's not really the best way to go. They're simpler and more concise. I've discovered it at IEP meetings when we decide on the behavioral definition of the target behavior, when we're all in agreement, every member of the team knows what we're looking at, what the behavior is, and we use that simple, concise definition. Mom, is this what it looks like? Yeah, okay. Try to avoid that jargon as well. Once again, we're painting a picture. We also use operational definitions when we don't exactly know the entire topography of the behavior, or prefer to define it differently. Okay. Topographical definition. There was something I found a while back when I was doing the book clubs about a function definition and a topography definition. When you look at function, obviously that's the why the behavior occurs. For example, we always look at attention. Johnny made funny noises in class to get attention from his peers and the teacher. Funny noises gained attention. So we have a function-based definition. He did this and got attention out of it. I can't talk tonight. Topographical, we're just painting a picture of what that behavior specifically looks like. What's the shape? What's the form? What does it look like? What's the topography of it? That's all we're concerned with. The form of the behavior will be especially important in planning the intervention goals. When I'm writing goals about shoe tying, if I'm writing goals about brushing teeth, what exactly is that behavior that I want the client to do, the skill I want the client to do? What does shoe tying look like? What does brushing your teeth look like? Because what you think brushing your teeth is, and what I think it is, could be two different things. So we need to describe, we need for how many minutes and how we're scrubbing and how, all that stuff. You need to have a very clear definition. We could also look at topography. Can't talk tonight. Defining safely across the street. However, that definition could be different for different people in different environments. Crossing the street. Do we look one way? Do we use a crosswalk? Do we stop at the corner? Do we press the button? How do we do that? So we need to have a clear topographical definition of what it means to cross the street. I stop at the street, I look both directions, left first, right second, no cars, then I proceed to start walking into the street. We could also scan for 3 seconds, but we need that clear definition. Does that make any sense? Am I talking kind of wild and crazy? Okay. You guys just being too nice to me. Function versus topography. Like I said a minute ago, topography is that physical form or the shape of the behavior. Different topographies can have different functions. I can't think of an example off the top of my head where doing it two different ways. There's a behavior you could do that has different topographies, but they serve as different functions. They could mean different things. But function, it is what it is. That behavior, that response targets a specific response class with that effect. All right, all that, and here we go. JO2. Yes, thank you, Tony. Yeah, there you go. It's been a long day. My brain's kind of, those are some great examples. Thanks. You guys are great. All right, JO2, potential interventions based on assessment results and the best available scientific evidence. All right, Gary tickles others and gets a reaction from them. Social attention. If you want to stop Gary from tickling others, and all you have is this information, what are some possible interventions? You want Gary to stop tickling others, and all you have is this information. What are some possible interventions? Now, these I've seen pop up on a few mocks where they give you a little bit of information about what's going on. Now, remember, you can't read too much into the question and you can't read too little of the question. What do they give you? So in this case, Gary tickles and gets a reaction, social attention, and we want him to stop. So what could we do? What would be some possible interventions? I think NCR would be good because NCR is always good for attention. Keep that interval nice and low, nice and short, and then he gets satiated on attention, and he doesn't need to get that reaction. Tickling, sitting on your hands, DRI, beautiful, beautiful. Can't tickle, if you're sitting on your hands. Love the DRA. How can he correctly, what's a desired behavior? What's a better way? Another way is probably a better way of saying it. There's that request. A simple SCR that could end up going to a complicated one. Learn to request appropriate attention. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Teach jokes if verbal. I like that. Another, I was thinking along the lines of maybe an antecedent strategy. Give Gary the floor 5 minutes before class starts. He can tell jokes and tell stories. And he gets all the social attention he wants, and he gets satiated. And he's ready to roll the rest of his class period. Based on BAF Supervisor Guide, I'm loving these answers. Think along the lines of DRA, you guys already did, DRI, and providing NCR. NCR is number one, at least I've noticed in mock questions and my study sessions, for attention, because it's not contingent. Here's coming, it's coming. You want it, we're gonna give you some attention. You want it, we'll make sure you get plenty of attention until you get tired of it, and then create set abolishing operation. And yeah, yes, very parsimonious. DRA from tickling, DRO for tickling. You can do anything else, and we'll reinforce that except tickling. Also think at least about extinction and maybe consider punishments. Punishments is always on the back burner. It's not usually a go-to. Remember, we want to think of reinforcement first. So you always want to look for reinforcement questions on any mock. We're going reinforcement first. All right. JO3, select intervention strategies based on task analysis. This was really cool, especially the way Rogue ABA kind of broke it down a little bit, and I've been kind of really pushing this with some of my teachers. If there's a specific problem in the classroom, or a problem with the client, or a problem with the client's behavior, task analyze what's going on in that situation. Break it down into steps. And which steps could you change to, help with your intervention to help with the desired behavior? A topographical definition of behavior lends itself to task analysis interventions. The actions and motions that if you want a client to perform can be described in steps to completion. This is very useful in identifying socially valid goals. It is also useful in transitioning one's thinking from negative target behaviors to positive solutions. This morning we had a discussion about the student gets out of the car to the student gets to the classroom. And I asked her to task analyze getting out of the car to the classroom. What are the steps involved? Obviously, it's not 20 steps, probably like, 3 or 4. Get out of the car, tell dad goodbye, open the door or walk through the door, put your book back on the cubby circle or a hook in the hallway, whatever, and then walk through the door. Our goal is to get the child to go in the classroom with no target behaviors. But what does it look like coming into the classroom? And we're going to work on those steps. And I asked her to just, map it out for me. What does it look like to try to get some positive solutions? J04, select intervention strategies based on client preferences. Client preferences are super important. Rogue ABA on their audio and BAS supervisor guide mentions all efforts are made to determine the client's choice. If we put a client in a home that he or she does not want to be in, then the efforts to change the behavior might be hampered. If a adult client really doesn't want to stop watching TV 10 hours per day, we're not going to force them. But we're also going to discuss some other and encourage other activities. We don't want to force our will on a client, but we do want to encourage other choices. J05, select intervention strategies based on the client's current repertoires. This is really important. What can the client already do? If they can't do it, then we need to teach it and shape it and help develop that skill. So we need to also know when we do that preliminary assessment, also look at what the client can already do. If your intervention plan at all involves differential reinforcement, you'll need to define a behavior that you want to encourage over the current one. While teaching new behaviors is certainly within the ability and purview of behavior analysts, but use behaviors the client already has demonstrated when possible. If the client can already do something, let's encourage that behavior. We don't have to always recreate the wheel. It's also very parsimonious. The simplest, most logical explanation. Even if the client has rarely demonstrated the behavior or has demonstrated it for other functions, it is still easier to use a behavior that is already in one's repertoire. If a client doesn't know how to use PECs, and that's how we're going to force communication, but they are already verbal, let's just work on communicating. What can they do? Running the hallway is an inappropriate behavior in a school setting. When improving, developing replacement behavior, think about what the client can already do. The client, if they're running the hallway, they could probably already walk. And if they're talking and they're being verbal in the hallway, then they could probably say, "Excuse me, please." We could do another appropriate behavior. Determine available resources. We should familiarize ourselves early with the physical, material, and human resources in the family or organization with the changes to occur and learn about the values, concerns, and habits of the key stakeholders. What resources do we have at our disposal? And most importantly, what are the values and concerns? I was telling my teachers the other day about thank you and please and all of. I like manners, but that's a value. We need to work on, getting those phrases to get needs met, and we could, develop those manners down the road. But manners are values. We need to see what adjustments might be required within the system. Is there any staffing issues, material, organizational, to encourage, monitor, and sustain the kinds of changes being sought? Do we have buy-in? Is everyone on the team on the same page? If not, that creates problems as well. We also want to do a risk analysis, a cost analysis. You know, cost isn't so much in dollars and cents, it's how much does it cost in materials and people and manpower as well. We may need additional services and or other materials necessary to carry out the program as designed. We may not have what we need. We may need other materials. Some of you special ed people, be careful blurting out, well, I think we should do this, this, and this, or add this and this and this. Once it pops in the IEP, that's legally binding. And some school districts and some departments, they don't have it. They're also careful how they go around. You know, is there a least cost-effective way to do this? So you got to be careful too. Once everything is in place, we select some similar procedures known effective under similar circumstances. This worked in that situation based on that research article. If I replicate it, it'll probably work in my similar circumstance. All right. J06, select intervention strategies based on supporting environments. Supporting environment, I've seen this on a question several times. What does a supportive environment look like? Well, it includes these things. A stable schedule of activities and personnel is presented. Reinforcement is available. Age-appropriate activities are provided and functional skills are taught. Relevant skills. Safety and dignity are maintained. Individual needs are addressed and functional skills are taught and maintained. I have seen this pop up, so if you want to screenshot it, please feel free. It is important to select interventions that one can contact and naturally occurring reinforcement. The natural environment should be maintain the behavior, not the change agents. You know, like token boards and tabulators and all those things. They're wonderful and they're great, but we want to switch from contrived to more naturally occurring reinforcement. That's when those indiscriminable contingencies kind of kick in, what it looks like in the natural environment. You need to familiarize yourself with the client or clients and the setting. Be careful instituting a one-size-fits-all behavioral program. Will it work with him, work for him, then it has to work for him. Be careful. These are individualized needs for the child. J07, select intervention strategies based on environmental and resource constraints. It is important to use least intrusive and least costly tactics as possible. Some of the constraints include lack of trained individuals. Remember, this kind of happens more than we want it to. Are people trained in what we're trying to do? If they're not, we need to train them. Who has experience in this situation? The presence of those who might intentionally seek to sabotage your efforts for behavior change. You know, the ones that say it's never going to work, no matter how hard you or how you show them with data or show them, you know, that it does work. They're just determined that this isn't going to work. They want something else. So they may sabotage your efforts. So you need to be aware of those constraints. Interested parties who disagree with the behavioral approach. Little time for assessments and legal constraints. Legal constraints is a big one. It's a big one. Analyzing the current operating system when faced with the challenge of preventing problems or improving the performance of individuals or groups. The organization's operating system or culture needs to be analyzed and taken into consideration. How is the group? How is the team? How is the agency looking at this? Recognizes that by avoiding problematic or challenging behavior in the first place, participants may be more apt to maintain their efforts. this also helps with buy-in. You know, we get those immediate results. We have a quick win. Then we keep going in. We don't always need to assume that in the beginning, our client and our guardian or whoever, they're just immediately going to buy in. We're going to have some problem in the beginning until we start getting results. You know, probably. Everyone needs to be aware of, committed to, and capable of fluently practicing skills consistent with the organization's or family's goals. What's the mission of the organization, and what are the goals of the family? What does the family want to see done with the client? What are they looking for? We need to provide professional development and parent meetings to train what we're looking for. Instead of saying, here's this great new whatever, we need to train what it looks like. With whatever we're working on with the parent and they start to see improvement, that's where our parent meetings can be geared toward. What are we doing that's effective that we can generalize in that home setting so they have the same tools as we do? Never need to assume anything. Train, train, train. This is where K comes in, Tasklist K, competency-based training. You know, same thing kind of goes with parents and other professionals and other contingency managers. You know, tell them what it is, show them what it is, have that written description, role play, feedback, they get a chance. And you see this in a lot of the, or maybe I've been more keen to see it in balance and PFA and other things I've been promoting, even professional development at work. You know, how we're looking at it. It's based on a competency-based model for Section K. Programming success may well depend on a consideration of cultural factors, especially the selection of goals and treatment strategies. Cultural factors are huge. That's where we get the gray area in our ethics also. I always think of the eye contact. Some culture that's disrespectful. In some cultures, it's disrespectful, look down. In other cultures, it's disrespectful, look straight ahead. You need to be aware of those cultural factors. That's why I always try to tell a lot of the people I work with, you know, you can have your values. There's nothing wrong with having your values, but we need to teach the skills first, and then, you know, on the way, put in those, in my values, the yes please and the yes sir, the no sir, and all that. We're going to get there, but we're going to do these things first. We need to involve key people. We need everybody on the team. We need people in the natural environment. This is where planning for generalization just kind of hit me, the light bulb part. You know, if I'm training a guy to work at an auto parts store, then I'm gonna go get that person at an auto parts store, and I'm gonna get that key person to kind of help my guy develop that skill over there. Well, same kind of goes for us in these situations. That paraprofessional in the class, let's train that teacher, that paraprofessional, that RBT, and the list continues on. We need their support, so we need to show them what we want them to do, but we're also generalizing here. In that natural environment, our clinic environment, our whatever environment, all those skills being taught. And of course, we need a very supportive environment. In the supportive environment, this hit a light bulb for me because this actually happened to me when I worked in home health for a waiver service, and it really hit home. You're with the client for 4 hours, and it's you and the client for 4 hours. BCBA my lead or consultant person came in. But we provide most of the service, and while providing services, dad's watching TV in the living room. Mom and dad are watching TV in the living room. They're in the other room. Now there's moments where we're gonna work and then all that stuff. But dad's in the other room while service is being provided. We need dad involved. Obviously, we don't need him, every step, every whatever, but we need him involved for the maintenance for when we leave. We need to show him, we need to pass the ball, pass the baton. And I try to do a better job at this with one of my paraprofessionals. I showed her what phrase I want to use with the client to get needs met, and was incorporating her to do the same. So in the classroom, she could use that phrase. But I wanted her involved in the change. She spent more time with him than I did. But we need those people involved. You don't need down on the couch the whole time watching TV and we providing a free babysitting service. That's what it feels like, to be really honest. That's what it felt like. You know, I'm here for 4 to 4 hours. Still can't figure that one out, but 4 hours and he's watching TV. And I look back, if we had some parent interaction, we could generalize those goals or have some more parent goals. JOA, select intervention strategies based on social validity of the intervention. Consider the following factors. The social significance of changing the target behavior. Is it an appropriate one to change? The food thing, there's several of them out there, but this came from Rogue and it made me think, you know, if everyone in the class is eating with their mouth open, we're going to make sure our kid doesn't. That's not really socially valid. There's no social significance there. Everyone's eating with their mouth open. Well, if everyone was eating with their mouth closed, eating with your mouth closed would be more social significant. We need that behavior to have some significance of his peers as well. So when we're doing all these things where we're going to make sure our kid does this, well, compare him to his typical peers. Do most of them do it in the classroom or in that setting? That's social significance. That's social validity. The desired behavior lacks social behavior. This now thing, eating thing here, lacks social validity would not be a good goal for the client because everybody else eating their mouth open. Like I said, if everyone ate with their mouth closed and we wanted our client to eat with their mouth closed, then that would be socially valid. How appropriate the procedures are to the individual. Sorry for the picture if that makes you uncomfortable, but is shock therapy appropriate? Very aversive, very aversive. And many people judge as unacceptable. So if it's not really appropriate, then we probably don't need to do it. It's just kind of an extreme, but that's where I was going. Social importance of the results. This is where the magnitude of the behavior change is important. Student will reduce tantruming by 10%, not really a valid result. 10%'s a little bit, but even with percentages, gotta be careful. You need to be careful with that. You know, with the trial for criterion might be more valid in this situation. Results should be noticeably different than baseline data. Remember, if we're taking data, like we should, like good behavior analysts, we should see a difference from the baseline to our intervention phase. We need to have that functional relation. And if we don't, or we don't see improvements, or we don't see progression, or whatever we're trying to work on, that data tells us a story. And that's where the effective dimension comes in. You know, we can look at the data and know if it's effective. And we have that noticeable change. Ways to determine the social validity of the outcomes of behavior change include comparing the participant's performance to that of a normative sample. Like I said earlier, are his peers doing those behaviors? Is there a behavior being exhibited that's different from his peers that hinders the classroom setting or daily life skills? You know, I know, I go to a classroom and you're asked to just observe everything and document everything. Well, if an autistic client is stemming, is that really hindering his daily life skills and hindering his behavior in the classroom? Not necessarily. But if he's moving around during instructional time, moving around during circle time, or he leaves the area a lot, Well, his classmates aren't leaving, they're staying there. They're sitting during instruction, no matter how long or how short. So we need to look at his peers and how that hinders the classroom or life setting. Stemming, that's my own personal light bulb. Stemming doesn't always hinder anything. They get excited, they get nervous. We do. What are the things that we do when we get excited, nervous, or sad, or worried? Asking consumers to rate the social validity of the participant's performance. There are questionnaires you can give the parent or the guardian, whoever, at the beginning, to determine what they're looking for behavior change. Then at the end, or after a certain step, we can compare. Asking experts to evaluate the participant's performance using a standardized assessment tool and test the participant's newly learned level of performance in a natural environment. These are ways to determine the social validity of outcomes and behavior change. That's a mouthful right there. J09, identify and address practical and ethical considerations when using experimental designs to demonstrate treatment effectiveness. Demonstrating treatment effectiveness is different than simply saying a client is showing improvement. We're not taking word of mouth, and this has been on several mocks. We're not taking word of mouth from mom saying he's doing better or she's doing worse. We're using the data. Data is going to tell us if we're showing improvement or we're not showing improvement. Then we have demonstrated that functional relation, stimulus control or experimental control. Each treatment design has its strengths and weaknesses. Critical considerations in choosing a research design usually include how much time and how many staff members are available. It's just like data collection. You want to choose the best for that situation. If the teacher collecting data for you has 26 students, I doubt she's going to have the time to do frequency data, which is the gold standard, that continuous measurement. But we may have to look at momentary time sampling. Same goes for experimental designs. Based on time, based on other constraints, will also limit which designs we use. Multiple baselines, including multiple probe, take more time to implement, as well as resource constraints when intervening in different settings. It is also difficult to eliminate influences between individuals receiving an intervention. Multiple baselines take a lot of time. That's why we also have delayed multiple baseline. Multiple probe is for when you don't have a lot of time and you don't have a lot of people that are there to help, because you're probing what the learner can already do, and it helps guide you on your treatment plan. I've noticed that for test questions. If I don't have a lot of time, a multiple probe design is usually the best way to go. There are ethical considerations when conducting a reversal or withdrawal or return to baseline. Remember, we can't unteach anything. It's kind of hard, impossible to unteach anything. It's also unethical to put in a intervention that helps eliminates self-injurious behavior, for example, and then taking away that intervention to go to baseline to see if we have a dramatic effect. That's very unethical. Hold on one. Sorry, my mother-in-law was asking me a question. Now I'm back. I turned my picture off and muted for a second. My mother-in-law was asking me a question. All right, let's finish out here. J10, when a behavior is to be decreased, select an acceptable alternative behavior to be established or increased. Look for a better replacement behavior. I had to use a Todd Hayden tip here. Always look for reinforcement choices in a mock question first. Remember, they want you to use reinforcement, not punishment, so always go for reinforcement choices. Just wanted to throw that in there for you guys. Anytime behavior reduction is proposed, it must always include reinforcement or alternative behaviors. Punishment doesn't look for a replacement behavior. Reinforcement does. So we want to use reinforcement, and we want to select a replacement behavior that's functionally equivalent. Like the break card. The client wants a break, so we teach them the break card means you get out of that task instead of hitting, kicking, ripping the paper in half, pushing the table 10 feet, whatever, to get out of that task. So we teach the break card, and then we kind of close the gap a little bit of how many breaks they can have, how long the breaks can be before they have to initialize, actually do the task. If the client does not have the skill in his repertoire, then we're going to need to design an appropriate intervention. Keep in mind the difficulty of the new skill and its application over the long haul. That's why we want to look at things in their current repertoire. Do we have time to reteach a brand new skill or teach something they don't have? How serious or demanding is the behavior that we're trying to look at improving or work on? So that's why it's also important to look at their current repertoire. But we need to choose an acceptable replacement behavior. J11, program for stimulus and response generalization. Stimulus generalization, sorry I found this and I just had to share. I just thought it was the funniest thing in the world, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. Once you are taught to respond to one stimulus, you respond the same way to other stimuluses with similar features. So dad's fixing his car and we get a little shot there, and so everything with that little smile is daddy. He goes to the store, 2 cantaloupes, that's gotta be daddy. Sorry, other things, it's gotta be daddy. A white coat is always a doctor. Stimulus generalization is that one response, multiple stimulus, multiple settings. Response generalization, once you are taught to respond in one way, you may respond differently in a similar situation. You can respond differently to a person by saying, hello, how are you? Hi. So I put the picture here. How you doing? What are different ways to have the response of hello? When I teach the coach T-ball, we had a challenge. Now back at response generalization. What other ways can you say good job? Those different ways, those different variations would be response generalization. Stimulus generalization is also loose stimulus control. We have tight stimulus control. We see that, that we know there's that response. It is what it is. So just also keep that in mind. I want to share this slide from my stimulus generalization thing a while back. Poison ivy, it looks the same as other plants, but they're all plants. So, or those green leaves may also, every green leaf like that could be poison ivy. So we're assuming everything, that one response, multiple stimulus. Cars. An SUV, a sports car, or a truck, they're all cars, they're all vehicles. That one response, multiple stimulus. We also have overgeneralization. That's when all men are dad, all white coats are doctors, everything's a truck, everything's a flower, everything's a dog. When we overgeneralize, we have a very difficult time discriminating. Same thing here. We have our praise, different ways of saying praise. We have our one stimulus and the many different responses that are included. A setting could be a stimulus. I learned that in a BAS question. Stimulus can be a setting. So keep that in mind when we have two different responses, but we have one setting. Also, response induction is an AKA for response generalization. Write that down, screenshot it. That's a very important AKA. J12, program for maintenance. From defining of a target behavior to the functional assessment, we're always planning for maintenance. Will this behavior continue following treatment? Will it continue when we're not around? Okay. Fully integrating generalization training from the start. The frequent failure of the train and hope approach from Stokes and Baer is one of the reasons why focusing on generalization and discrimination aspects is such an important teaching management skill. One that should be addressed from the very beginning of any behavior change program. You know, we need to focus from the beginning. What's generalization for other settings, other people, other everything? What does that look like down the road? How am I going to train for maintenance once we're done teaching the skill? Because once we master it, once we're fluent, we still want to keep that skill in our repertoire. We don't want it to go away. Try introducing minimal intrusive prompts such as gesture, a familiar facial expression, or even directly requesting the behavior. You're probing. You know, can you show me what show me what it looks like? Should those attempts fail, then progress to a stronger prompt like modeling the behavior yourself, ask the person peer to demonstrate, or gently physically guiding it yourself. And frequently you want the behaviors you plan to teach to occur in the presence of a variety of people, natural circumstances, or at different times. If you're going to play ball, you might want to play ball on the playground. You might want to play ball in class, wherever it's appropriate. You also might want to include peers. A lot of things that we do, communication and probably other behaviors too, we do it with the adult and the client. And a lot of the client's interactions are going to be with peers. So we need to incorporate peers if we can. J13, select behavioral cusps as goals for intervention when appropriate. Like we said earlier, when we look at behavioral cusps, yes, there's those doors those are behaviors that literally, open up new doors to other things. But we don't want behaviors that lead to a dead end. If I teach the child or client to rewind video cassettes, that's a dead end. Is that an important skill anymore? No, it's not. Facebook, it leads to other contingencies. And then it becomes a pivotal behavior, like I said earlier, Snapchat, Twitter, and so forth. So you want that generative learning also, that generative learning where behaviors are cusps and pivotal at the same time. They open up new doors for new contingencies, but also lead the way to other things. Have it become pivotal. I think we just said all that. Pivotal behavior, once learned, produces corresponding modifications or covariations. If I learn how to, I don't know, trim here, my facial hair, then maybe I could trim some of my hair, or it leads to other things. I'm kind of spitball here. Sorry, I wasn't trying to go fast. Okay. Behavioral cusp, like I said earlier, I think crawling is probably the best one, because crawling leads to, other contingencies in the household. But also crawling can be a pivotal behavior. It leads to walking, it leads to standing, it leads to running, it leads to all those pivotal behaviors. That's why crawling is probably a great generative learning. Reading, it opens up new contingencies. Generalized imitation, that's a great example. It opens up new contingencies. The learner performs a new behavior and sets the occasion to access reinforcers, those new contingencies. And we want those behavior cusps to lead into pivotal behaviors. Once we learn that behavior, then we can learn modifications along the way. Walking would be a behavior cusp, I agree. But then it could turn into a pivotal behavior with running, climbing, other physical, things. I think you could look at, I think the crawling is good, or the rolling over, the baby rolls over, and then the crawling for a baby, it literally leads to new reinforcers. But down the road, crawling leads to walking, then walking leads to running. So walking can be a behavior cusp, driving can be a behavior cusp. But once we learn how to drive, we have modifications down the road that leads to pivotal behavior. Now I know how to drive. Now I know I'm gonna learn how to drive a stick shift, a manual. I'm gonna learn how to drive a truck, learn how to drive a semi, learn how to drive a school bus, learn how to drive different types of vehicles. So that driving is a behavior cusp, but the different types of vehicles becomes a pivotal behavior. Does that make any sense? Because that helps me remember, because they're a lot closely related, because they both come in the package of generative learning. That's our goal. These two come together. We're not just focusing on the cusp only or the pivotal only. We want the package deal. Okay. J14, arrange instructional procedures to promote general. I think I've already been doing this, guys. Catching a trend with myself here. Derived relations are those relations that you kind of pick up on yourself. You think of stimulus equivalence, that A equals B, B equals C, so the learner will figure out that, B equals A, and the learner's going to figure out that B equals C. Then the learner's also going to figure out that C equals A. When the learner figured those things out on their own without being trained, there's that derived relation. But it also helps out with generative learning. When we have that demonstrated understanding between stimuli, that's not directly taught. If I tell you that a watermelon is bigger than a baseball, you're probably going to figure out a derived relation would be, I'm pretty sure the car is bigger than a watermelon. That derived relation is that relationship that wasn't directly taught, kind of that light bulb moment. The learner would derive or learn that a watermelon is smaller than a car, or a baseball is smaller than a watermelon. These relations were not directly taught. I was trying to find a terrible looking car. I think I succeeded on that one. Here's the Rogue. Feel free to screenshot that. This is also free on their deal. Has the generative learning, the pivotal behaviors, and the behavior cusps. This also came from another slide of mine. And J50, I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to stay here. I think I kind of hit home on the generative learning a little bit. Are pivotal behaviors derived learning? Oh, I don't really know how to answer that. In a sense, I guess they would be, because we do want derived relations with generative learning. Like if I learn how to use Facebook, those same principles would help me with Snapchat. If I knew how to drive a truck, I would probably have a understanding that those same principles apply with the car. So I can see some derived relations going on there, some derived learning. But pivotal behaviors are also those modifications, those dimensional changes as well. I can see it. I can see some derived relations happening. If that answers your question or helps out anyway. That's a tough question for me. All right, J15, base data, base decision making on data displayed in various formats. In case you haven't got the memo, we are data driven. And it won't go to 1454 for me here. Because it didn't go any farther. There wasn't anything to put in there, that's why. Base decision on data displayed in various formats. The reason why I probably don't have any slides to go with that is because you're using your visual analysis. What the data looks like, what the data is displaying, what the data is showing, and we base our decisions. Pretty much there. All right. Any questions, concerns, worries? Did I go too fast, too slow? Did I y'all have any light bulb moments? Okay. All right, tomorrow night, we're gonna hit section K. Tonight, same time, 5 o'clock. I'm gonna upload this to the YouTube page. Thank you guys for the kind words. Thank you so much. It'll be uploaded in tomorrow night, same time. I can't always promise we'll have 2 presentations every week, but we'll definitely do K tomorrow night. And I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for giving me your time tonight. Y'all have a good evening, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks, guys.